Hello, welcome to Sama Saturday, everyone. Welcome to the show. Hopefully you're able to hear us and see us all right. And as you're coming on, please let us know that you're here. We'll give it just a couple of moments for people to be able to jump on. Hi there. Hi, everyone. So let us know as you're coming in. I see you there. Let us know where you're watching from. And welcome to Sama Saturday. So this is Sama Dog's monthly show where we bring our attention to natural pet care. We are always happy to have all of you here and very, very grateful for this beautiful community that we've shared and that we experience together. And we are also very grateful for our amazing co-host, Dr. Katie Kangas. Here she is. Dr. Kangas in the house.
Thank you. So happy to be here as always.
Well, we're so happy to learn from you, and it's such a timely topic that we're going to talk about today. For anyone that may not know, Dr. Kangas is a holistic or integrative veterinarian for over 25 years. She is the founder of Integrative Veterinary Care in San Diego, a fabulous holistic clinic. If you are in that area, make sure that you stop by, you know about that, and you have a chance to get to know her wonderful crew over there. So before we dive in, hi everyone that's coming in. Great to see you. Let us know that you're here, where you're watching from, and maybe even your fur friends. Who's there with you? We always like to know that too. So before we dive into our topic today, I just wanted to mention quickly that Sama Dog has our signature online course that is starting very soon in about 10 days. It's called Ayurveda for Dogs 101. And you learn, if you like this conversation and you like these conversations about holistic wellness for your animals, I know you will love this course. It's over 3 weeks. We do this as a group, so you have some live calls and get some Q&A support on Zoom, and there's a lot of connection within our group as well. And there's a special appearance by Dr. Kangas to help us integrate the information we learn. So you'll see her again there. So if anyone is curious to learn more about that, you can go to samadog.com and get all the details there on Ayurveda for Dogs 101.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, can I please interject with a personal comment on the meditation series that you released recently? I know I've given Amanda some personal feedback, but I just want to share with everybody that I did the meditation series and I was so, just blown away with how impactful and, so just useful it is to tap in that way. And thank you so much for providing that. It was fantastic.
Well, you're welcome. I loved creating it for all of you. It was very touching to me, as you know, that you took the time to really move through all 5 days. That also, so you guys know, that's also available. You can find that on our website. That's available. It's called the 5-day meditation, or it's called intentional pause. Yeah, 5-day walking meditation.
Yep.
Thank you, love. So, so today our topic is fleas and ticks and how to prevent them naturally. So especially this time of year, I think most of us are starting to become aware of the buggers again. And as I see my little fur friend over there itching, these kinds of symptoms come up and remind us that, the season is now. And it is the most common question I'm asked is this one, is there a way to prevent fleas and ticks naturally without using the conventional preventatives that are full of chemicals, as most of us know? These are, for instance, Frontline, Trifexis, Brevecto, NexGard, all of these different, whether it's an oil that goes in between the shoulder blades or a pill or whatnot, chewable that's given. Those are what is most common. And what we are here to talk about is understanding those products more and understanding, more importantly, the alternative, and that there is one. And what's really cool is Dr. Kangas just wrote an article for the Adored Beast that will come out soon. And she dove into this conversation deeply. And that's why we were extra inspired to share that here today. So for us personally, we have definitely experienced more of the tick thing. We came from San Diego. Some of you guys that have been in our community know that I lived in San Diego for many years, where Dr. Kangas lives. And fleas were like the thing there. Oh my gosh, so bad. Finally learned to combat them, finally learned to get them under control naturally and successfully for like 3 years, no chemicals. It was awesome. And then we move up here to Northern California into the dense forest, and suddenly we're laden with ticks. almost grosser, but we won't get into that. And so it really is something that I personally am very excited to hear about and learn more as we get through this conversation, as we move through it. So let's see here. I think the first and most important question, well, first I want to invite all of you to ask your questions. You know, along the way, we want this to be really interactive. We are here for you. We want to serve you and meet your needs. So tell us what's going on, what you've tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked, etc. And we will definitely have time to get to your questions. So Dr. Kangas, I think a really good way to start, or a place to start, is that tell us exactly, when we talk about these chemical preventatives, tell us exactly what is in those, what is it doing for our pets? I think that's a good place
way to launch it out. And that's actually how I launched my article too, that I just did write for Adored Beast, as you shared with everyone. And what a timely topic. Interestingly, they asked me to write this article for the blog, and about a month ago, or maybe 6 weeks. And as soon as they asked me that, literally all of my clients started asking, what do I do this year? Can you give me the synopsis of what are the best options to avoid these chemicals? So everybody's been asking. So that was very timely, and I'm really glad we get to share this today. When I started my research to present this article, I dived into a little bit of what is going on with the chemical products that are available that most pet parents turn to for at least the heavy part of the season for fleas and ticks. And interestingly, there's been a lot of reports and a lot of studies that have just been coming out lately on a lot of these flea products. And Dr. Jean Dodds, who many people may be familiar with, is a leading authority veterinarian in a lot of topics in holistic care, and well published and well researched and all that. And she actually did a webinar looking at the studies and comparing what's going on with these flea and tick chemicals and the adverse events that have been reported in dogs. And it was shocking. I watched that webinar and I was already concerned, of course, about the level of chemical use. But after getting that information, I was so motivated to put this together for people, to give people other options. But essentially, to answer that question, there are a lot of pesticides in those products, essentially with a lot of chemical names that are very difficult to pronounce. And each generation is getting, stronger and having to come forward with new generations to deal with resistance to these things. And interestingly, Amanda and I were just watching Dr. Zach Bush and his presentation online the other day, and he was presenting information on stronger and stronger chemicals that are coming out in the agriculture industry because of resistance that's being created in the weeds and the plants. And it's the same thing with our pets. It's stronger and stronger chemicals are coming out. And it's gotten to the point where many veterinarians or pet parents think that they have to use these monthly, year-round, just routinely. And we're now starting to recognize that we need to really individualize our plan for each dog, depending on their lifestyle, their health background, obviously, your preference, what they're exposed to, and that sort of thing. But these chemicals are a real problem. And most of the chemicals in these new products, and Amanda named a few, Bravecto, there's NexGard, the Trifexis, Simparica, the new one, Credelio. There's many of these, and most of those products, or all of the ones I just named, the ingredient, the toxic ingredient or pesticide, is a neurotoxin. And so it exhibits its killing activity through affecting the nervous system of the parasite. But when these products were released, the claims were that it was very selective to arthropods, which insects or parasites. But it turns out we can clearly now see that this is affecting the nervous system of our pets, because some of the top listed adverse effects are tremors and seizures and being off balance, wobbliness, difficulty, weakness. But there's also a host of other things, like potentially even liver failure and behavior changes and aggression and all kinds of stuff, which obviously could be tied in with the nervous system as well. And then vomiting and diarrhea and GI effects too. So a lot of adverse effects. and very high percentage of what was reported from the studies that they did. So yeah, so good motivation for us to be looking for other options, bottom line.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so, what do you think, like, take us from the top? I know that nutritionally, overall, our animals are so much better off if they have sound nutrition and their immune system is strong and their gut biome is fertile and or flourishing, and probably not fertile, but flourishing. And so tell us, how do we help our animals protect themselves, and how do we do that, from a nutritional perspective, and then what do we add on?
Yeah. So again, the best foundational way to protect them from parasites and any illness conditions at all is to provide a foundationally good diet. So it all starts there, because a pet with a strong immune system that's eating a species appropriate fresh food diet, and a variety of different foods and some strategic supplements, the immune system is going to be so much stronger. And bottom line is, parasites, fleas, and ticks are going to be more attracted to a weakened body than a strong body with a strong immune system. So it definitely starts there as the first approach.
Yeah, that's great. And then what?
And then, so there are, and by the way, in addition to just a typical, foundational diet and immune system support through foods and fermented foods and all these things, there are also a few things that could be added in very specifically to help immune system and more resilience to parasites. And for just good immune system, by the way, honey or raw local honey is an excellent thing that you can add into your dog's diet in small amounts. And an appropriate amount would be about a half a teaspoon per 15 pounds of dog weight per day. So if you're adding in raw local honey, it is going to help the pet's immune system, especially for what's in your area. So, and same thing for us, obviously. So that's really good. Provides some local, protection with immune factors. And then beyond that, garlic, many people know that garlic is, it's got a lot of medicinal properties. It's got antiviral properties and such, but it also, and antibacterial, it also has antiparasite properties too. So some people are concerned about garlic being toxic to dogs because it's been written up a lot. It's been way overstated and misunderstood. So garlic is in the onion family, and onions are toxic to dogs, but in larger amounts. I mean, a dog getting a couple little pieces of onion in your, leftovers or whatever food is not going to be a problem. But large amounts of onion, yes. For garlic, it would have to be ridiculously large amounts to cause any toxicity problem. So in small appropriate amounts, garlic is absolutely safe and very beneficial for your dog. And an appropriate amount of garlic would be about a quarter teaspoon of freshly chopped garlic for every 15 pounds of dog. And there is a big difference between freshly chopped garlic and a garlic powder or garlic that would be in a supplement, because there are a lot of anti-flea, natural supplements that have brewer's yeast and garlic and things like that. And they can certainly have some effect, but freshly chopped garlic will do a lot more than something in like a powdered product or a capsule product. So
and isn't it even for like a certain amount of time, like maybe 15 minutes or so from fresh chopping, right?
So, right. Yeah. The medicinal agents that become bioavailable are literally right after it's chopped. So that's kind of neat to know too, that if you chop it and store it in the fridge for a while or whatever, it won't have the same effect either.
Well, just as a side note, it makes me think about human food and human cooking. Sometimes we'll buy the minced jars of garlic. So same thing there, right? For humans.
You're exactly
nutrition.
Right. It's good, the flavors there, but the medicinal properties are mainly lost. So
really interesting. Well, I think it's really good to draw a highlight to that, because I commonly hear that from people is, oh, no, garlic's on the don't give to dogs list. And
so I love to clarify that, because it's definitely a very healthy food when used appropriately. Absolutely.
Perfect.
Yeah. So those are some foods that can be added into the foundational diet that will help us with flea and tick and just overall immune system. And then we can also think about keeping our pet's body as clean and resilient as possible through regular detoxing. And certainly if we have to use any flea products, and, you know, I'll back up because we talked about how toxic some of those flea products are. And obviously we want to avoid them to the best of our ability. But I tend to tell people too, I mean, at some point, sometimes you have to choose your battles, and we want to minimize any of those chemicals as much as we can. And we're going to offer a lot of different options today so people can, you know, have all of those tools and decide, you know, what their pets really need beyond that. But, you know, minimizing as much as we can. But when we do have to use anything, or just to be as proactive as possible, is to detox on a regular basis. And so seasonally, that makes sense. If you have to give your pet flea or tick or heartworm medication, giving some liver support after that for a few weeks makes good sense. And, you know, herbs like milk thistle and dandelion, and there's SAMI that's very liver protective. So those are things that we can do on a regular basis as well, or as needed. And then phytoplankton. By the way, Adored Beast has a great phytoplankton product, and that has an impressive nutrient profile of things that are very helpful for the body and the immune system, but also is good in a detox plan. So that's another nice aspect of that. So that's another category too, is good food, building the immune system, keeping the body as clean as possible as well.
And on the physical body, on the outside as well, like you said, too, washing them, just, you know, I think even once a week, if you're in the midst of a flea and tick season or a high time. I always tell people to leave the soap on, because fleas will drown. So just like slather them up, you know, get it all nice and fluffy and frothy, and then leave it for 5 minutes or so and let everything kind of settle in, and then rinse it off. And then you've got the good old flea comb, you know, that is a great thing.
Absolutely. Yep. Those are some of the best tools. And, you know, all of the research that I did, some of the very proactive factors are bathe frequently in the season that they're going to be exposed, because you can wash fleas off. They will die. Now, granted, we want to talk about what's in the environment too, but frequent bathing, frequent flea combing. When it comes to ticks, really nothing can replace the diligent tick checks of when you come in from outside. So when you're in Amanda's new area, being more, you know, prevalent with ticks than in the area that I'm in, it would just be like, if you go walking in the woods yourself, you're going to check yourself. You're not necessarily going to slather yourself with pesticides every time you go out, but you want to be cognizant to check your dog for ticks each time, and check for sure around the ears and, you know, the face, the tail base, the armpits, things like that. And another thing that I saw too in my research is recommended to, if you can put a shirt on your dog, if there's something that's lightweight. I think that we should develop this if they're not out there. I was going to research if any are out there. But like a nice, you know, t-shirt outfit that at least is blocking a lot of the torso from ticks attaching, and you'd want it to be breathable and comfortable and all that kind of thing. So, but that's another, you know, option to think about too. And that way, at least you would just have to do the tick check as more diligently on the exposed areas of the face and the tail and legs. So another option as well. Yeah.
I can't help but imagine Violet in a giant flea outfit, a tick suit, feet and everything.
Right. Yeah. And so, because it would block them from attaching to some extent.
Yeah. So we have a quick question. I'm just backing up a little bit from Shannon. Is garlic daily as well? And is it just during the season or year round?
Yes, and honey as well. So it is daily, and it can be just in that season, or you could do it year round. There's, you know, there's no reason you couldn't do it year round, but definitely in the season would make them more resilient for parasites, which, you know, is our topic. So either, and honey too, that could be given year round.
Great.
So people think of it more in the allergy season, because honey's known to really help with that, but certainly using it year round should keep your immune system, you know, even better primed.
And then this question from Susan: how local is local?
That's a good question. You know, I don't know the answer to that for sure, but I mean, I would think like 100-mile radius or something like that is pretty close, maybe even more. But, you know, like in your state or in your, you know, relatively regional area, I think would be still very useful. So
great. This is a good question from Trish. What about Peak Immune from Glacier Peak? Is that one okay to use seasonally?
Absolutely. Yes. I love the Glacier Peak product. So definitely would be a good thing to use as well. Mm-hmm.
And there's another Glacier Peak product that you told me about that I have.
Yeah, actually, the Daily Defense is one that I really like a lot too. And interestingly, it has some things in there that obviously we're talking about. So the Daily Defense is a powder that is meant to be given daily, as the name implies, to help the body, your pet's body, be a better defender for itself. So just elevating the defense systems, which is great. And some of the ingredients in there include garlic and bee pollen and diatomaceous earth, which we're going to talk about as well. And then there's some kelp and some barley grass. And there's also nettle and dandelion for, or milk thistle for liver and kidney clearance. So it's just, helping to daily detox and daily strengthen the body for parasites and everything else. So great product too.
Oh, it is. I noticed a big difference. Our protocol basically was everything we're talking about. We brought in our flea product as well, which is a flower essence that Dog makes. And I would just do that 5 drops twice a day. Consistency is key with that. And then the Daily Defense. And even off of our big fur mama that used to lay in the grass and go to the beach, we were clear. So it was very good.
Yes.
It's quite an accomplishment. Here's a quick specific question: is with honey dosage. 1/2 teaspoon of honey for dogs less than 10 pounds?
So a 1/4 teaspoon, would be great. So an eighth to a 1/4 of a teaspoon for less than 10 pounds, because it's about a half per 15 pounds. So an eighth to a 1/4 for a 10-pound kiddo would be fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then we mentioned detoxing afterwards for about how long?
I would do for 2 weeks. So, if you're using things monthly, then, you may, and I mean, if something, and if you're Daily Defense, if something like that, I mean, you're really sort of getting daily detox anyway. But if you're using another milk thistle product, I would use it for a few weeks.
Okay. Is it okay? I was doing that with Violet recently. Is it okay to put that into their food, or is it better and more effective to stick it right into their mouth?
It's fine to put it in the food. Okay. Yep. The majority of herbal, formulas that I dispense, people put right in the food, and it works really well.
Okay, great. And so I don't know what, Dr. Kangas, you wanted to speak about next, but I know that essential oils is one of the common conversations.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about that too. And we can go into that now, or I sort of have my article here as a guide of things to talk about. Maybe we can end with essential oils, because I think that's going to have a lot of questions as well. But one of the things that, I talked about too is the fact that obviously when there's fleas on your pet, you want to address the environment as well, because there's going to be fleas in your home if they're on your pet, and certainly eggs being laid and being hatched and that sort of thing in the environment. So some natural things that you can do at home, it will include essential oil products, and we can get to that. But a great one to talk about is Diatomaceous Earth, which is a silky fine powder that actually comes from like marine phytoplankton crustaceans. And that silky fine powder is a desiccant, and it actually dries out these insects. And I think microscopically, it actually pierces them as well, because it has microscopic little edges, which is interesting. So it kills fleas and ticks with a mechanical method, not a toxic poison method, but it doesn't affect us or dogs. So it's a really neat thing. And diatomaceous earth has been used in gardening and, yard care and things like that, of course, for a long time. It's an excellent thing to use for our pets to keep them more, parasite free as well, and your environment. So diatomaceous earth can be sprinkled around the house. It can be sprinkled in the pet's bedding. It can go right on the pet as well, but it is drying. So, a lot of the cautions are just maybe don't leave it on for very long. Put it on your pet, let it sit for 24 hours, then bathe them. In your home, you could let it sit down for 24 to 48 hours and then vacuum, that sort of thing. It's a fine dust. So anybody with a respiratory problem or, allergies or hay fever or something like that, you would want to be cautious of not, sprinkling it to aerosolize it too much. Keep it close to the surface of where you're sprinkling it. But that is a wonderful thing to use. And, that could be used more frequently, obviously, during a heavy season, but wouldn't need to necessarily be used daily. Could be used a few times a week or whatever's needed.
That's great.
Yeah. And that can be, and there's food grade diatomaceous earth as well that can be put in the food too. And there are brands, we actually carry, I think I printed out just so people can see some easy.
Yeah, I found that it was a little bit hard to find diatomaceous earth when I went searching once. I had to find it online.
Derm Magic makes it. This is the one we carry at our practice. And so directions will be on there too for using it. And it is, of course, a food grade. So that is a great thing to be aware of. So that's one way to, help to control the environment as well as directly on your dog. And then another great option for the environment is beneficial nematodes. So these are things that can be bought in garden centers, or certainly you can probably get anything online. But these are little worms that keep your garden area and yard free of the larvae that are going to turn into things that we don't want. And namely in this conversation, of course, fleas and ticks, but it's oftentimes used for a lot of garden pests and yard pests to keep those down. And the neat thing is that these little worms will feed on the eggs and the larvae so they never hatch. So it's a really good proactive way to keep the levels of parasites down in your yard or outdoor space area around your home.
Great. And it just, when we work with nature to support and balance nature is best.
Right.
No matter what topic we're talking about, right? So if we can utilize the power of universal creation and all of its options, it can balance itself. This is an ecosystem. There's a harmony, a homeostasis that exists if we can kind of get out of the way, or sometimes help introduce and rebalance.
Isn't that, it's so cool. I'm glad you said it, because it's like organic farming, farmers that are really invested in using the abilities of the earth to help, and that's exactly what we're doing. I mean, farmers rotate crops and use natural insects and birds and things that will protect the crops, and the same thing now is we can use other natural insects to help us control these, which is really great. And the other thing that's fun to talk about with the yard space as well is something I learned from Dr. Jean Dodds that she put forward as a good option for control is to plant plants in your yard area that are actually naturally repellent for ticks and fleas. And so these would include things like lemongrass and rosemary and sage, some of the things that people might recognize in essential oil products, obviously made for flea and tick, but you can plant these kind of plants if they survive in your area and your region is, will accommodate that. But that is a really wonderful option too.
I'm doing it. We talked about that before the show, and I'm already planning to go to the nursery today. I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah, I love that idea as well.
Yeah. Okay, so what else?
Segue us right into the essential, oil topic too. Or maybe before we go to the essential oils, I'll bring up neem oil, because neem oil is an essential oil. And Amanda's going to actually know more about neem than I do, but I did learn and of course I'd heard of neem oil. I just hadn't used it very much clinically, but in researching neem oil, it is wonderful. And of course, neem is a tree from India. So this neem oil has been long used in Ayurvedic tradition and Ayurvedic medicine, and it's got a ton of health properties, and being, for infection, antifungal, antibacterial, antiviral, helps wounds heal faster. And it's actually got anti-cancer properties. People even use it for that. And lo and behold, it's got anti-parasite properties that are natural and very effective. So the neem, from what I understand, neem can medicinally be used from a lot of parts of the tree, including the bark and the leaves. But neem oil is extracted from the seed, and it's like a cold press extracted, kind of like olive oil would be, but not the same as an essential oil would be. But neem oil can be used in many, different, facets, and certainly it is included in a lot of flea and tick natural products for pets. And there is a company, by the way, called Wondercide, which I wanted to introduce anyway, because they make such great products that are essential oil based, and they actually have a neem product as well. Okay, that's just a neem spray for skin to help heal things faster, and lots of uses. So that's a nice product from them as well. And then as far as the essential oils, there's many that have good anti-flea and tick capacity. And I named lemongrass as one of them. I want to make sure that I don't leave any out. Cedar is certainly a very common one that's used. Peppermint, lavender, catnip, geranium, eucalyptus. So lots of them there. And then I also mentioned rosemary and sage. And the Wonderside products include several of those. And they make sprays that are safe and effective to go right on your pet. And they make a house product to spray around your house, and they make yard products as well. And they even have flea and tick wipes, which is kind of cool. So if your pet, you know, when you spray them, obviously the act of spraying them and misting them and you know, that can be nerve-wracking for a lot of pets. So you can either spray on your hands because it's very safe and rub it on them. And, you know, obviously avoid the eyes and the nose and things like that, but you can rub it behind their ears and on their neck and chin and the rest of their body. But you could also use flea and tick wipes too for some other options to topically apply.
Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. And we have a lot of great questions here. I don't want to jump topics too much, so I'll try to kind of stay on one topic here. Let's see here. Let me see.
And the other, you know, while you're looking, the other thing that I didn't mention also is apple cider vinegar. So apple cider vinegar is included in a lot of homemade recipes. And I do have a homemade recipe that I can just, you know, quickly give the ingredients, and we can certainly add it to our list of things later for people to review. But this is a recipe offered by Dr. Karen Becker and includes water. So it's 8 ounces of clean water, 4 ounces of organic raw apple cider vinegar, 10 drops of neem oil, 10 drops of catnip oil, and then 5 drops of one of the following essential oils. So you can pick any of them, but lemongrass, eucalyptus, geranium, lemon, they will all work. So that's a nice recipe. Now, apple cider vinegar by itself is actually very useful too. And a lot of people will do a 50-50 with water and apple cider vinegar and use that to spray, you know, on your pet or apply on you and rub on your pet. And so that is a repellent as well. It's not going to kill the fleas, but it will repel them. Now, the Wonderside actually kills fleas in the wet phase. Once it dries, it repels them. So Wonderside, depending on, you know, your area and how saturated it is and how healthy your pet is, you may need to apply it, you know, regularly in heavy season. But if, you know, there's some people may only need to apply it a few times a week because it does have repellent action once it's dry.
Great. So we have a lot of questions about Diatomaceous Earth. So let's go and jump back there. So about that, do you have to be careful of your pet breathing it?
Yes. So so that's what I alluded to is if, you know, you don't want to shake it so much that it's creating an aerosolized powder that, you know, you're all breathing in. So that's the one caution with Diatomaceous Earth. I mean, really 2 cautions is just that you don't want it to aerosolize because it is a silky fine powder. So when you're shaking it, you know, don't shake it from feet above, you know, just try to keep it as close so it's not aerosolized. And then the other concern with Diatomaceous Earth is that it's drying. So not going to, you know, cause any detrimental problems, but it can certainly be drying to the skin if you leave it on too long. So those are the 2, but very, very safe in general. But those are the 2 things to be aware of.
If given internally, would you recommend choosing one of the products that you mentioned that has it as an ingredient, or just giving the Diatomaceous Earth? And if so, how much? And
I didn't actually look up a dose of when you're giving it. And I'm sure it's on the bottle of a lot of the products that are, there's numerous Diatomaceous Earth products made for pets where that's the only single ingredient. So you can absolutely put that in. It doesn't need to necessarily be a combined product as long as it is quality. And if it's, and it doesn't have to be labeled for pets as long as we get clear. And I should have made sure I had a dose for you, but I didn't look that up.
I can put it up.
As long as we have, great. As long as we have, you know, clear guidance on how much to use, it doesn't have to be a product necessarily made for pets, but there are many products that are packaged specifically for pets for that reason. And then they will have appropriate directions on the label.
Great. Great. Let me just see that is all of our Diatomaceous Earth questions, I think. How about this, jumping to a different food edible? What about Vinegar? False pepper? I don't know it either.
answer that question. I have no familiarity with it, but now I want to look it up.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to that. So heartworm, I know that's a big conversation, another bug, another preventative. What are your thoughts just kind of initially on heartworm? She says, Paula says, I hate giving it to her because she lives in Florida.
Yeah, see, Florida, I'm so sorry, Paula. I mean, Florida is a place where that is really endemic. And actually, Dr. Karen Becker did put out a really, and I think she updates it like every couple years. So if you want to, and we can include the link as well, to look for that article. And she talks about obviously minimizing heartworm prevention medication as much as you can, but that's really going to be dependent on the region of the country or the world that you're in. And the most endemic states in the United States are going to be the Southeast with Florida and the Gulf Coast. And so during the warm months, the risk is much higher than elsewhere. I am very fortunate in the San Diego area that we see such minimal, very small numbers of heartworm cases here. And so most of my clients, including myself, I do not use, heartworm prevention, but there are some areas where you're always wanting to obviously to evaluate the risk benefit ratio. And many areas, the risk of putting chemicals in their body blanketly every month outweighs the risk of the disease. But in Florida, the exposure is high. And that is, of course, because the heartworm life cycle is through the mosquito. It's very warm and it's very moist. Dr. Jean Dodd says that she still recommends heartworm medication in areas that have mosquitoes where once the ambient temperature is above, I think it was 57 degrees for 2 weeks. So I think I wrote that down. Yeah, 57 degrees for at a 2 weeks of 57 degrees. So once the temperature gets to that, level in that season, then the life cycle of heartworm is going to be engaged. So at that point, that's where you want to bring in prevention if you are in an endemic area. Mm-hmm. So now the other thing that I can share with Paula, I think that's really important, is that most of those heartworm prevention medications are labeled for monthly use. However, the chemicals, the ingredients in there actually work for killing microfilaria, the little tiny microscopic larvae that are put into the dog's body when an infected mosquito bites them. It is clearing them from the system. So it's not actually preventing heartworm per se, it's preventing full-on disease because it's poisoning the microfilaria that could be put into your pet's body by an infected mosquito. But we do know that those products work for about 50 to 55 days. But they don't work for 60 days. So the thing is, they were always labeled for monthly, probably for two reasons. Clearly, it's much easier for people to remember to give it monthly than to give it every 50 days. The company is also going to make a lot more money when the product's being used monthly than being used less often. So you can stretch a heartworm product to every 6 weeks and still be absolutely within the effective zone. So that's one thing you can minimize, is give it every 6 weeks, mark it on your calendar, just through the season where you have to, when it's, the higher temperatures, warm and moist, and then in the wintertime, you won't have to use it.
It's great. It's such a significant difference for your animals in the long run when you add up every month of their life.
And on that same sort of thread is when you have to use flea or tick products. If you're really struggling getting that under control with natural means only, and you're in a very high saturated area, the other thing that sometimes works is to alternate months of, maybe if you have to use a flea or tick chemical one month, then the next month it's just natural things. And so at least minimizing the frequency that you're giving it oftentimes will work too, rather than, most veterinarians will tell people just use it every single month, make sure they're protected. And then we're talking a high level of chemicals, and that's often not needed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think we addressed this, but in Texas, would you use heartworm preventative seasonally? We talked about that. If you're using natural flea sprays, can you stop heartworm pills like Interceptor?
Yeah. So again, great question. And the fact that a lot of these natural sprays are going to repel mosquitoes just like they repel fleas and ticks. So part of that is going to depend on how well that particular product is working for your pet, how often you are applying it, how thoroughly you are applying it, that sort of thing. I mean, if you just do a couple spritzes. And my concern would be if you're in an endemic area with a lot of heartworm prevalence, I don't know, I can't say with reliable, experience that would prevent it enough. But absolutely, you are going to cut down on the number of mosquitoes that are going to bite your dog if you're doing these things. Is it going to be enough to completely prevent? I don't know. So if you're in a high endemic area, I would definitely, weigh out those factors. But these sprays definitely are mosquito repellent as well.
Great. And I can't find it now, but someone had just asked if Flea, our Samadog product, works for ticks too. My answer always was, I haven't been able to use it a lot on ticks. I've just heard that it works well. But now that I have my own experience, what I have found is of our 3 dogs, 2 of them are great with the Flea. And actually, we just noticed again, when we put it back really consistently, that's when we really noticed Graham and Benny not getting any more ticks. Maybe I said flea, but I meant ticks. So the Flea does work for that as well. However, our big girl, Violet, who goes out and lays in the forest all the time, that's been more of a challenge. The Flea hasn't been quite enough. So in conjunction, as Dr. Kangas has explained to us, with many other methods, pick 4 or 5 of these different approaches that we're talking about, and then we've been able to get to where we want to go. So
that is awesome. Yeah. And I'd love to hear the feedback on the flower essence Flea as well. Because, I was looking for putting flower essences into my article too, but I hadn't had enough clinical experience using them for that purpose to know. So it's really great to hear that feedback too.
Yeah, I have clients that swear by it. They have 5, 6 dogs even in their house, and they live in very dense areas, and they love it, and they keep ordering it over and over again. And just seeing the repurchase of the product shows me how it must be working well for people, and I hear that too.
And something else that is similar to this topic, since we were talking about, the flower essences, of course, are working very much on an energetic basis. And so something else I came across in Dr. Jean Dodd's suggestions is a frequency, like an electromagnetic frequency tag that goes on the pet's collar that actually has good research behind it and a ton of good feedback and positive testimonials. And when Dr. Jean Dodd presented this on a veterinary webinar, I was intrigued because she's very much into research. And so I looked it up, and it's cat and dog. And I actually printed it out just so I could show people. Yeah, cat and dog is how it's spelled. And it is a tag that looks like that they wear on the collar. And apparently it lasts for like months and months. Maybe it was even longer than that, years. So, and there's actually research studies, and people really were offering some excellent feedback on how well this works for ticks and fleas. So I was going to suggest that, Amanda, in your new tick prevalent area, that we should get these on your dogs, because I would love to hear back some clinical feedback on how well does that work. Yeah. But that really intrigued me too. A very, very safe way of doing that. So the one other thing that didn't come up, I think, in our conversation yet that I did want to make sure I talked about is if you are in a tick prevalent area, having a tick removal tool is very
exactly. I was just going to pull this one up.
Okay. So, and I included that in my Adored Beast blog too. So I printed out because I couldn't find my tick tool. We sell these at work. Yeah. Do you have one?
Yeah. I'll be right back.
This is what they look like. And this is actually the Mercola, Dr. Mercola. So from Karen Becker's Mercola Healthy Pets. And so that's the one we carry at work, but there's numerous options, and they're super handy. And of course they have Amanda will show us, they have the little handle and then the little teeth nozzle thing that will get under the tick and its head, because you want to get its head out, and you twist and it comes out. So that
there it is.
Tiny, cheap item is worth its weight in gold if you live in this area. Yeah. For yourself too, for that.
I had no idea. And we were doing I read online to drown them in alcohol, and then they kind of get all ditzy, and then they want to come out. but it didn't really work like that. And actually little Ben got a head stuck in him. And I was like, okay, that's the last time. So then we found out about this little guy, and it comes in a bigger one for bigger ticks and smaller
Exactly.
ones.
Yep. So you got the small, and how well thought out. I mean, because the size will make a difference with how efficient you are getting the entire tick out, and, and the attachment from the head. So that is a really good thing to have on hand.
Yes. It's a little lifesaver around here. Yeah. It makes, like, when you turn, because you have to turn it for whatever reason, their little legs must not hold if they go to the side. But if you go back, you hear like a little pop. We've become quite the masters at this. Renee puts his headlamp on. Got his glasses. We got a whole
great idea. Find him with a headlamp. Oh, fantastic idea.
Twist and pull, Marissa says. Exactly. Look at the face. That's the perfect emoji. That's hilarious.
I love it. I love it.
But what remedy if the tick did bite?
So after a tick bite, that's a good question. I mean, again, I think everything that we talked about, if there's been a tick bite, all of those things are going to support the immune system. If you're doing the garlic and the honey and the milk thistle and the phytoplankton and all those kinds of things, the concern, but such a good question here to segue into some conversation, is the big concern about ticks is fleas are no picnic either, but ticks are more concerning medically because they do carry potential diseases like Lyme disease and Ehrlichia and Rocky Mountain spotted fever. Fortunately for me in Southern California, we don't see a lot of tick-borne disease. Ehrlichia to some extent. Lyme disease is relatively uncommon here. I've never had a patient with it, but we want to be obviously concerned and aware of that. So if you do live in an area that is prevalent for ticks, I absolutely would recommend a tick test, a blood test where they're checking for antibody levels to several tick species. And that is a really wise thing to do as a proactive measure for your pets, probably at least twice a year. That would be really, really good. And that way you can pick up if there's antibodies present. Now, the good news is several of those diseases, Lyme disease is really like a kind of a scary thing for people. But with dogs, they usually do not contract the actual disease. And even if you find antibodies on a blood test, they may be completely asymptomatic. Their immune system may have completely handled that and, gotten over it, but they still can have antibodies present. If they're showing symptoms, though, then it needs to be treated. And fortunately for dogs, Lyme disease is very treatable with doxycycline. It has to be used for 4 to 6 weeks, but antibiotics will treat that. But the antibodies in their blood test could be persistent for a long time. So the things you want to look for with a potential tick-borne disease with your dog are things like lameness, limping, shifting leg lameness or pain, fever, and lethargy. Those would be the big things we'd be looking out for. But testing them a few times a year to be really proactive. Same thing with heartworm, by the way. I didn't mention that in the heartworm question. That's another thing. With my clients, I support people in avoiding heartworm prevention in this region. They're going to travel. I tell them, reconsider depending on where you're going. But as a proactive tool in the program, test for heartworm at least a few times a year. And that way you've got some good proactive screening. It's way better to catch it early than to catch it late. So, and another, proactive way to screen for tick problems. So
really interesting. I had never even thought about that. That's so helpful. I did read somewhere, you tell me if that's correct, that it takes a couple days for the tick to be on the body to transmit if it had Lyme disease to do that. So all the more reason why every day checking and getting them off of there is.
You're exactly right. And that's my understanding too. And I don't know if there's an exact calculation of how many hours or days, but it's not immediate. So agreed that, checking regularly is by far your best, protection method.
We had a neighbor here, because tick is a very common conversation around the neighborhood, who was bit by a tick himself, and it like embedded in there really badly. And he actually sent that tick out and got it itself tested. And I hadn't even realized that you could do that. So that's
yes, isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Know if you even have to be concerned is
Mm-hmm.
that tick carrying, that organism. So
Fascinating.
Mhm.
Well, who knew this could be such an engaging conversation to talk about little nasty bugs for an hour?
It's fascinating when you start diving into this. It's like, wow.
It really is. And your information, Dr. Kangas, is so helpful. There's so many options. We kind of think like, okay, we've got these really strong chemicals that I hear it all the time. I hate putting that on her every month. It breaks my heart to have to do it. I hear people feel that energy around it, which also, as energy workers, we know that is not good in and of itself. The fact that we hate doing it, we know it's not good for them, and then we do it anyway. So now we know that there are many steps, countless really, that we have just touched on that we could try, and that are not just a little helpful. From my own experience personally, are extremely helpful and game changers. So thank you for all of that.
Absolutely. And the other, piece of that you just really alluded to is that having so many options is very helpful, because usually using several of them, combining, for kind of a multimodal approach, is going to give the highest level of success. So rather than just using one thing, rather than just using an essential oil spray, if you can add in the diatomaceous earth or the beneficial nematodes, certainly your checks, frequent bathing, frequent vacuuming, protecting your yard. All those kinds of things add up to better overall success.
Yeah. Oh, it's so great. Well, as I mentioned before, all of you need to know that Dr. Kangas is available. Not only is she here on our show every month, which we'll always keep doing, and make sure that you're on our mailing list so that you get the emails that let you know what the topics are and what's upcoming. So that can be connected to at samadog.com/join us so that you can get on our list. And Dr. Kangas is at Integrative Veterinary Care, her location in Sorrento Valley in San Diego area. She does, obviously, she sees her patients one-to-one. She has this boosting and bursting practice that is there, and it's just wonderful, all the resources that she has and all the aid that she can provide. She also does online consultations, so that's available if you're not in the San Diego area or can't get there. So, and then her Adored Beast, that's a wonderful other organization that's all about holistic wellness, the Adored Beast Apothecary. Beautiful, beautiful people. We love them. And Dr. Kangas wrote her article for that organization, and that'll be coming out really soon. So you can just go over, make sure you're on their list, or make sure you follow them, and you'll see that come out. Any other words or thoughts before we close up today?
No, thank you. I'm just really, as I said, this is such a timely topic. So I'm just really pleased to be able to contribute some of this information, and happy that it all aligned with me being able to share it in several places and multi-purpose the research. So that was really wonderful that I could share it here. I'm actually going to create a client newsletter as well, because everybody's been asking about it. So, and perhaps I'll tag something on my website with a nice little review sheet on this too, in an easy bullet point fashion. So it's got some good details for everybody.
It's great. And you can put this video in there in a link in your blog too.
Yeah, great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really
so we'll get the word spread all around the world. Less chemicals, all the companies by, next Tuesday, all the companies are going to be like, what the heck? I'm a dog.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great. So thank you again, Dr. Kangas. Thank you, all of you, for being on with us. We're so grateful to have you in our community. The fact that you want to sit here and listen to this for an hour and then take action means the world to us, and most importantly means the world to your animal that loves you so much and is thanking you right now. So we hope to see you all next month, and we'll be in touch then.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.